You know about conspiracy theories, right? I mean, okay, bad start. Let's walk it back. You live in the same bizarro dystopian underwater Twilight world that I live in, right? COVID cases are booming again, the Jewish space laser lady is on the new show of the child trafficker, and both of them are writing laws in our Congress. People are taking horse dewormers and dying en masse. A lot of folks have kind of lost their grip lately, and I think it's pretty fair to say it's at least in part because we've had a big resurgence in conspiracy theories lately. Our prior president was actually the final boss of conspiracy theories. It's been real weird, and I've been thinking a lot about conspiracy theories lately, so here you are. I made a video about them. That's usually how it goes. I just get a little hyper fixated, and during the 4 a.m. research binges, I manically scroll down what I learned in order to make a video and provide you content. So let's learn how time is a flat circle of terrifying ideas, and we will never escape. Where do words come from? Where do they go? How did we get theories about Lizard President Joe? I need a professional script editor. The etymology of conspiracy theories is important for clarity and context, so please just bear with me. The Latin root words for conspiracy means together or to breathe. The Latin root word for theory means contemplation or to do a big thinky. For longer than these roots have existed, we have had people who have conspired and people who have theorized, both entirely different from conspiracy theories as we know them. This dichotomy can be most easily summed up as a conspiracy is a covert plan devised by a group of people, so naturally a conspiracy theory is the hypothesis of the existence of a conspiracy. A conspiracy is a falsifiable plan subject to discovery or human fallibility on part of the conspirators, a plot capable of being foiled. Whereas, in a conspiracy theory, the conspiring actors are nigh infallible and maintain an uncanny level of secrecy and flawlessness in their execution. Did I just spit? Oh god, I'm so sorry. The acting parties in conspiracy theories often possess demigod-like power, be they shadowy bureaucrats or supernatural or even in some cases extraterrestrial beings. This level of supernatural existence preemptively accounts for human error, so many intricate real-world factors that would jeopardize the viability of the theory are smoothed out, such that the conspiring actors are never subjected to them in the first place. Conspiracy theories completely detach themselves from empiricism and never engage in facts the way a real conspiracy is required to. Actual conspiracies have historically mostly been influential acts of political usurpation or espionage. With espionage in particular becoming so prominent and dangerous, a federal law was passed as the US entered World War I, making espionage punishable by death. At this point, political usurpation was becoming less viable by conspiring individuals and was instead being handled by American warhawks in developing countries. However, there are hundreds of accounts of political usurpations and coups by conspiring individuals dating back several hundred years BCE. They can also be political or politically adjacent and aren't strictly tied to political motives. The capture and crucifixion of Jesus was a conspiracy. The largest slave revolt in America, the Stono Rebellion, was a conspiracy. And indeed, not all of them are bad, ignoring that what's bad is pretty nebulous, subjective, and ill-defined. Generally, conspiracists exist to oppose a consensus, authority, or hierarchy. They are actors who devise against it. Conspiracy theorists believe that they have knowledge outside of this consensus pertaining to the actors. The conspiracy theorist does not conduct the conspiracy, rather they theorize about who is conspiring what, and often the who and what aren't even real in the first place. So, what's a theory? Theories are, for the most part, hypotheses for yet to be determined outcomes. Most simply, for example, they're used in fields of science to help us understand our physical world more accurately, such as the theory of evolution or relativity. Theory is also applicable to politics, with political theory being the most foundational component of a given political ideology. This is further broken down into normative and descriptive theory, the former being the pursuit of a philosophical standard by which to gauge human behavior, and the latter being a pursuit of empirical evidence, the hard data to define the motive and efficacy of a given political theory or ideology. The existence of conspiracy theories can be explained in a sense that the theorists are afraid of the dark. These conspiracy theories are concocted as a template of order, in a vain attempt to explain the unique chaotic disorder of our existence and our society. So when did these two ideas begin to meld into this concept, cogent in its own right? Well, maybe I didn't look hard enough, which is entirely possible, but I couldn't find a definitive point in which the first conspiracy theory was documented, nor when the term was created. But we do have a little bit more word study and a good amount of literature to help guide us. And before we get into it here, I did want to disclaim that I'm
not using the terms conspiracy and theory as shorthand for the word conspiracy theory unless I say otherwise, just for brevity's sake. Did you get that?
You could argue perhaps that conspiracy theories began to surface as a concept millennia ago, in which any leader with even a stripe of paranoia would have some lingering fear about being overthrown by an imaginary group of conspirators. A semi-modern example that still predates our modern records of conspiracy theories, there's the attempted assassination of Andrew Jackson. This act itself was a conspiracy, it was a real plan, however it spawned a web of conspiracy theories branching from the would-be killer's actions, including whether he was connected to anti-Jackson senators or an organization known as slave power. They weren't very PC in 1835, I know we say enslaved people now. These were affluent plantation owners from the South who were allegedly behind multiple attempted assassinations of presidents and congresspeople. However, let's recoup a little and not start conspiracy theories about where conspiracy theories come from. There's about 1 million rabbit holes over the course of this video that we could and should end up falling down, but I am gravely afraid of trying to produce something longer than 35 minutes. Its earliest usage in print comes from the Journal of Medical Science, volume 16, published by the Medico-Psychology Association in 1870. The term's usage was in regards to the manic paranoia of a subject detailed in the journal. So that checks out. It coincides with paranoia being the root of conspiracy theories that we've established so far. However, there's no grandiose plot or actors to speak of. Oxford Dictionary's citation is a little more fruitful and more closely resembles our modern understanding of conspiracy theories, citing its earliest usage as a 1909 American Historical Review article on the subject of an attempted repeal of the Missouri Compromise. So here's our first thread on conspiracy theories. A group of unknown negotiators were plotting to turn Missouri into a free state. Based. However, by this point there was contention over whether the term conspiracy theory has always been derogatory, or if at one point in the 19th century it more so meant plausibly believing something could happen, which is the stance held by Andrew Mackenzie McHarg, a historian who has contributed a fair amount of research to projects on conspiracies, democracy, and the Illuminati. I know I said we wouldn't go here, but even the term conspiracy theory is subjected to a conspiracy theory, the theory being that the CIA created or popularized the term in order to discredit detractors of the Warren Commission, the commission investigating the assassination of JFK. And these detractors were actually conspiracy theorists because of this belief. They kind of shot themselves in the foot with that one. This in and of itself spawned a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, from Lee Harvey Oswald being a government insider to a hitman contractor to the CIA killing JFK and feigning a cover-up. And no, we're not going down the JFK was an inside job rabbit hole. None of this is super applicable to our modern understanding of conspiracy theories. I just wanted to cover some bases and provide some context. To get to the root of our modern understanding of conspiracy theories, we need to look to the works of Karl Popper, a philosopher and detractor of the conspiracy theory of society, an idea coined in his books, most notably the 1945 book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, where he talks about liberal democracy and Marx and Hegel and theory, oh my! So we're not going over that. Karl Popper is a philosopher, so he's very, very big brain and far out of my purview. All I know about him is he's the paradox of intolerance guy, so basically he's to blame for the entirety of r/political compass memes. Okay, the conspiracy theory of society is that powerful groups of deity-like influence control and usher all ills of society. Bear in mind he was a detractor of this theory, which he also came up with it. He's strawmanning conspiracy theorists, or is this a steel man? He is kind of just removing all the narrative fluff from conspiracy theories here. This is why I don't debate. His work on this subject cemented him as a sort of orthodoxy for denouncing these broad, sweeping conspiracy theories in philosophy circles. His works, as well as writings from his critics since the 40s, were published in the philosophical novel, journal, book known as Conspiracy Theories in 2006. This was a conglomeration of the works of many philosophers aiming to bridge the two sides of the philosophical debate surrounding conspiracy theories. The more dated stance that they are so irrational they should just be outright dismissed, versus the more contemporary stance that they should be subject to analysis and do not deserve their reputation for irrationality. Popper's contribution to the conspiracy theory of society is full of jargon and gigabrain academic jerking off, so let's just read the abstract.
The conspiracy theory of society is just a version of theism, of a belief in gods whose whims and wills rule everything. The conspiracy theory of society is very widespread and has very little truth to it.
Only when conspiracy theorists come into power does it become something like a theory which accounts for things which actually happen. The conspiracy theorist will believe that institutions can be understood completely as a result of conscious design and as collectives. He usually ascribes them a kind of group personality, treating them as conspiring agents just as if they were individual men. As opposed to the view, the social theorist can recognize the persistence of institutions and collectives creates a problem to be solved in terms of an analysis of individual social actions and their unintended social consequences as well as their intended ones. In all social situations, we have individuals who want things, who do things, who have certain aims.
I hate people smarter than me. So this ties in a lot to what I talked about earlier, how conspiracy theorists seek order in an otherwise ununderstandable world. Whereas I used a metaphor for being afraid of the dark, Popper draws parallels to religion and the idea that everything is part of a predetermined pseudo-divine plan. And just to be cute and complete this love triangle of very smart people, Stephen Hawking has said that theism is for people who are afraid of the dark. Here we can also see that Popper argued it can't possibly be true, because nothing makes enough fucking sense for it to be true. And the theories only begin to unfold once a proponent of the theory holds a position of power. His critics cite his beliefs only applying to broad and extreme conspiracies, like the conspiracy theory of society, and not smaller or more specific conspiracies. With fellow philosopher Charles Pidgeon saying, quote, "The theory is so far-fetched no sane person would ever believe it," unquote, Pogo. This is so fucking funny to me. Talk about living in an academic bubble. Pidgeon! Have you talked to your average Republican in 2021? They believe anything they see, so long as it's on Tucker Carlson or freedomeagle.facebook. And one more thing, I know this is too many jokes, but it just cracks me up. I can see where BreadTube gets its affinity for those really long response videos, assuming they're inspired by these philosophy dudes. Karl Popper's initial paper on the conspiracy theory of society was 3 pages long. Charles Pidgeon's response, titled "Popper Revisited" or "What's Wrong with Conspiracy Theories," is 27 pages long. It's OG breadtubing. The long and the short of it is Popper's works help popularize the coinage of conspiracy theories in various interdisciplinary circles branching from philosophy, and that's where we're going from here. I should have water filling up the screen as I drown in the tears of philosophy majors because I didn't include a bibliography of every breath Charles Pidgeon took reading page 246 of Open Society and Its Enemies. Go ahead, try and drown me. I'll just build a raft out of all those master's degrees because I know they aren't being used otherwise. I'm sorry. That was really mean. I got carried away. I hope we can bury the hatchet and move forward from here, at least cordially. If not, as pals. By the mid-20th century, conspiracy theories started to become more widespread through various cultures. This fluid permeation of conspiracy theories comes from their malleability. The characteristic detachment allows them to be applied to pretty much anything. As mentioned prior, they have a prerequisite disregard for any mere facts of reality that could possibly disprove the theory, making them impenetrable bulwarks of wacky ideas applicable to any conceivable situation. It is also interesting to note that the nature of a given theory is heavily subjected to cultural norms and the geographical placement of the theorist. For example, areas in the global south tend to have conspiracy theories about the societies and technological advancements of industrialized nations, likening the imperialism and vast technologies of Western countries to witchcraft or extra-dimensional capabilities. Imagine you're a farmer in rural Africa, and you see enormous contraptions flying at supersonic speeds, capable of hailing explosives that level an entire village in a matter of seconds. I mean, blink and you'll miss it. Would you not view this as unimaginable, godlike power? However, I don't want to encroach too heavily on cultures from developing countries that I have next to no understanding of. So let's talk about America, baby. McCarthyism. In American politics, the Red Scare conspiracy theory, held most notoriously by World War II veteran and Senator Joseph McCarthy, was so influential to politics it created not only its own section in history textbooks, but an entire rhetorical case study on making unfounded accusations of treason or subverting the US government. This has been dubbed McCarthyism. The roots of this theory come from a period of left-wing persecution in the US following World War II and during the Cold War. McCarthy's rampant alcoholism and paranoia were feeding his beliefs that communists infiltrated every level of American society and government, from state houses and local elections to universities in Hollywood, all the way up to the highest echelons of the federal government and the army. And naturally, the express goal of these communists were to destroy America and corrupt the minds of youth for generations to come. Through a series of smear campaigns, McCarthy had dozens of people in politics and entertainment dragged through the dirt until they were borderline untouchables. Hundreds of actors were blacklisted and unemployable in Hollywood despite denial of the existence of such a blacklist. Again, conspiracy theories having real influence on real politics is not just limited to Western countries. China's modern economic policy was debatably influenced by the theory that the Rothschild family orchestrated the Asian financial collapse of 1997. However, I'm no economics or geopolitical savant, so I'm going to leave that there and not elaborate further. However, we will get back to absolutely wild right-wing paranoia, so do put a pin in that one. Following the end of the Cold War, Western nations saw a brief reprieve from such doomsday conspiracies like the Red Scare or the conspiracy theory of society. The success of liberal democratic nations over the USSR led to a renaissance of the idea of the end of history. In his 1992 book, The End of History and the Last Man, political scientist Francis Fukuyama argues that humanity has now reached the logical conclusion of its socio-economic evolution as liberal democracy prevailed as the universal system of governance. We got the neoliberal dream, fellas. Everything just makes sense now. Bill Clinton's the president, the commies were defeated, the economy is booming, America won. No more conspiracies, it's game over now. How naive do you have to be to exist in the 90s, look around with your two human eyeballs and think, yeah, this is literally as good as it gets. But much like the entirety of the end of history as an idea that's supposed to happen at some point, it's not really that easy. Conspiracies began to crop up and reign, yet again, over predominantly the right wing in America since the mid-2010s. I wonder why. Were you online during this time? It was absolutely wild watching conspiracies pop up like weeds and become so commonplace. For every vaguely left-wing protest or feminist march between 2015 and 2017, there was a 4,600-word readme.txt posted on 4chan about George Soros funneling billions into cucking the Western American male master race or whatever. Theorists began to gain prominence through this wildfire spread. Panic sells, and panic about aliens puppeteering world leaders to orchestrate the collapse of civilization is a banger tabloid headline. We began to see a more professional class of conspiracy theory peddlers, particularly theories of the conspiracy theory of society brand, the big spooky ones. Welcome to your intermission. Before we get into more heavy stuff, I wanted to take a little bit of time to just read out some positively bonkers conspiracy theories. There's a lot of room for fun in conspiracy theories, despite them mostly being used to cull fear and dangerous levels of paranoia. So let's just cool it for a second. The year is 1998. You're at your best friend's house. Their weird distant cousin is over, sitting under a black light, smoking a spliff, telling you about how, like, bro, aliens are totally real, bro. It's me. I'm the cousin. And I don't have a blacklight or a spliff. Let's just get to it. Did you know the world ended in 2012 following the discovery of the Higgs boson, a very, very special little bitty in particle physics? The theory is the particle's capacity for energy was so high it created a black hole and began swallowing up the entire universe. This is corroborated by Stephen Hawking's theory that the Higgs boson was capable of forcing the universe to, quote, undergo catastrophic vacuum decay, which, if the universe is a vacuum and the vacuum decays, wouldn't that be like, by definition, an explosion or an expansion? I don't fucking know. I don't understand anything about theoretical physics. Anyways, as it goes, we literally wound up in the shadow realm, and that's why our existence is so plagued with things like climate change and an uptick in homicides, because apparently these things didn't exist prior, and the only thing we really have to go on as evidence is anecdotes from suburban wine bombs. Things just haven't felt right since 2012. Did you know Disney's Frozen was produced as a cover-up psyop. This theory is that Walt Disney was studying and experimenting with cryogenic preservation and suspended animation, and allegedly succeeded in being frozen before his death. The theories of this began to stir, and suddenly people were Googling Walt Disney Frozen. Disney got all sussy about it, and so they decided to draft an entire film IP in order to fudge the search engine results. So results about Frozen would be the first ones to come up rather than any information about their founder being frozen in ice. This is so stupid to me. Couldn't people just search like Walt Disney Frozen theory, or was Walt Disney frozen in ice before he died? It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Hey, guess what?
The Denver International Airport is a portal to hell that also houses the Illuminati. This one's probably my favorite. I'm not entirely sure where this theory originates. Perhaps it's something super simple and it's just kind of glazing past my purview here. But as it goes, there are allegedly secret tunnels under the airport that house lizard people. There's spooky murals depicting surreal and apocalyptic imagery, and they even have this fucking enormous blue horse nicknamed Lucifer, who allegedly guards this portal to hell, despite the fact that he's made out of fiberglass. God, what a headstrong king. He's not letting anything hold him back. They even have a plaque from the completely non-existent New World Airport Commission. Spoopy, sweaty, that organization doesn't exist. Where'd you get that plaque from? What's funny is how the airport embraces the theories. They have a gargoyle bust named Greg. Everybody say, "Hi, Greg." He often misspeaks and says things like, "Welcome to the headquarters of the Illuminati. I mean, the Denver International Airport." He doesn't actually sound like that. He just kind of sounds like a guy, but it'd be a lot cooler if he did. The construction signs used at the airport show pictures of lizard people or gargoyles and say things like, "What's going on behind this wall?" Oh, just a secret Freemason meeting. Now they even have a whole page on their website dedicated to debunking these allegations, but I'm not buying it. What I am buying is a one-way plane ticket to Denver so I can go take care of those fuckers myself. This theory is genuinely hilarious, so unironically, go look into it some more. The imagery of the signs and the conspiracist testimonies surround the whole thing are actually really funny, and the airports playing along with the entire thing is just the icing on the cake. This one is really minor, and it's not really a conspiracy theory, but it's so weird and so funny and ties in beautifully to the whole being right-wing and or a conspiracy theorist literally rots your brain motif. Do you know Reddit? I know Reddit. I've been on that goddamn website for like nearly 10 years at this point. Well, during the height of their popularity with Nazis, they began to face site-wide pressure to start banning alt-right and Nazi enclaves. This usually spawned smaller and more obscure Nazi spaces, one of which was called Friend World. The idea here was that by acting like disabled children and speaking in codes, the Nazis could secretly continue their socializing on the website. And it worked for a while. It took Reddit years to ban Friend World. I don't want to get too deep into this one because it is super tangential, but I do highly recommend you check out some of the archives or watch some YouTube videos on the subject because it's really weird. And then we have a whole host of stuff like deep sea aliens in the Indian Ocean following a UFO crash, hollow planets, the flat earth theory, the Bohemian Grove where world leaders go to have sissy kink butt sex while performing rituals over the blood of children. Wait, what the fuck? Let's talk about that time weaponized paranoia became the hottest commodity. Conspiracy theories as of late have mostly been utilized as tools to min-max the paranoia of mostly right-wingers in America. Where does this paranoia come from? Well, if you're a conservative, living in an ever-progressing America can give you a sense of unease, as you feel the life you once knew and loved is being torn away from you. Especially when your entire ideology and worldview is rooted in regressing to the past or remaining only in the present. This is more or less what's known as the culture war. And in a war, you devise plans, you conspire. And if you're conspiring, your enemy must be too. And this might compel you to begin, maybe, theorizing about what they're conspiring. Are you following? You get it. You get it. As you may be able to guess, the idea behind the culture war is that there is a battle being waged over the course of American culture. Whether it will regress to the old school picket fence 50s fantasia of the conservative ideal, or if it will continue progressing to the leftist fever dream of thigh-high wearing catboys who sit down to pee. The way this culture war is waged is by design to continue stoking the fears of the conservative wing, raising tensions and breathing life into the paranoias founded in bigotry and the staunchly self-serving, anti-collectivist conservative mindset. That isn't very, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free the wretched refuse of your teeming shore of you, buddy. What is scary is these fears are no longer being stoked in quiet basements of a handful of Yu-Gi-Oh players. They're being stoked on the largest news show in the world. They're being stoked in online forums with millions of users. They're being stoked by senators and presidents. This stoking of fear and paranoia undoubtedly reached its apex in 2016 during the presidential election. Do you remember WikiLeaks? I remember WikiLeaks. For the uninitiated, Julian Assange is the founder of WikiLeaks, an organization dedicated to publicizing high-profile and classified information provided to them from anonymous sources. During 2016, the DNC's email server was hacked by an anon known as Guccifer 2.0, who then provided the intel to WikiLeaks. During the summer of 2016, and again just before the election, WikiLeaks released thousands and thousands of emails, mostly detailing bland business procedure. However, with the combined might of millions of cases of undiagnosed schizophrenia, anything is possible. There was just enough seedy language buried in those thousands of emails to provide endless rabbit holes packed to the brim with red meat for the ravenous masses. Do keep in mind the context here. Hillary Clinton, ghoulish as she is, was on the receiving end of a decades-long smear campaign with long-standing conspiracies about anything from her political career to her secret black magic practices. It's been devised for a long time that there's something about that woman that just ain't right. Follow it up by the paranoia and fear being jostled daily by brave generals in the culture war, and you have an army of vaguely self-aware rabid animals desperately frantic to gnaw on something, anything, that validates their fear and inability to understand why things are happening the way that they are. A bizarre world full of secret emails between shady politicians, a country changing and becoming unrecognizable to the one you grew up in. So many questions that'll go unanswered, so much justice never to be served. This is what it means to be afraid of the dark. This is the need for that divine conspiracy theory of society. So, when she, a creepy ghoul with questionable sources of vitality, enlists this guy, another creepy ghoul who probably eats children, as her campaign manager, bippity-boptics is pretty bad optics. It's just not a good look, okay? This is also in the wake of people like Ben Shapiro, Paul Joseph Watson, and Alex motherfucking Jones being platformed both by Republican candidate Donald Trump and extremely popular news programs like Fox News. I might make an entire video about Alex Jones.
Destroy the child, corrupt them all.
Jesus Christ. Is that in frame? I hope it's not in frame. Did I change the gain on here? Hold on. Are we back? Hold on, something broke here. Are we back? Hello? Okay, probably got real loud for a second there. I'm real sorry. Point being, there were a lot of prominent people whipping up this rabid hatred of Hillary Clinton. If she continued to appear impenetrable by this point, the stakes needed to be raised. The conspiracy theorists needed to up the ante. So obviously all those hot dogs and pizza toppings were bulk orders of prime infant bodies with a discount coupon from Wayfair. So obviously they were being delivered to the secret portal to hell in the basement of McSpanky's. So obviously those bandages on Podesta's hands were because he cut his fingers harvesting adrenochrome from babies. The numbers, Mason, what do they mean? Fast forward 3 or so years later, and so born was the idea of satanic vampire cabals heading the DNC, sulfur pouring from the sky as demons unironically roam the streets to suck the life out of your children's necks. QAnon. The references to QAnon. Again, we could fall down so many rabbit holes here as QAnon has its teeth in basically every conspiracy to have ever existed, From anti-Semitism and New World Order, another huge rabbit hole, all the way to our modern anti-vax movement. At this point, it's like the Hog's Voltron, a disgusting culmination of every possible cobweb of conspiracy that has survived all the way to the 21st century. I started researching it to elaborate more, but it's completely incoherent. It's like they tried to parse it in the most bizarre and nonsensical way possible. And I'm sure everyone here gets the gist, or is at least vaguely aware of it. Just imagine you threw 2016 poll into a blender, added a little bit more unchecked delusions, and then actually made it politically viable. The nature of these claims inherently necessitates the stakes continue to be raised, outpacing any chance at complacency or desensitization on part of advocates of the theory. What's scarier than real-life demons? How about real-life demons that kill God? How about nigh omnipotent orchestrations from alien demons bent on destroying our very American way of life by injecting you with microchips that bar you from the rapture? Where is your God now? Joseph Robinette Biden killed him and turned him into a stuffy, breedable cat boy. Who knows how much crazier the conspiracies are gonna get? I surely couldn't guess. When I was vaguely aware of politics for the first time around the tail end of the 2012 campaign, I never realized it'd end up like this, Chief. This is one half of America's mainstream political advocacy. These are people we have in the halls of Congress. This is the worldview of 75 million people who voted in 2020. This is the crowd that stormed the Capitol by the thousands on January 6th, no doubt in response to the conspiracy theory that the election was stolen, one repeated daily by our president. That whole thing was, oh god, I couldn't even figure out how to fit it in here. Conspiracies have just fucked up politics so much, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure everybody has seen at least some footage from the Capitol riot, and was it not totally bonkers? There was this guy, there was that one woman who got shot and she fucking died. We've got Michael Pillow out here saying that the whole thing was just a setup. Rioters were actually digging through the records and filing cabinets of congresspeople to find that one catastrophic piece of smoking gun evidence that doesn't even exist. And some of the testimonies that have come out have been even weirder. I just read an article earlier this week that one of the rioters said courts have, quote, no dominion over a living soul in an official court filing. These are not the words of well-adjusted, mentally sound people. They're taking horse dewormer so that spoons won't stick to them when they get the vaccine. It's just so sad. These people are dooming themselves, and for what? How do you get so corrupted? Oh god. There might end up being a part 2. No promises, because I don't ever want to make a part 2, but there's so much more conspiratorial shenanigans and so much more elaboration due on basically every topic here. We're barely scratching the iceberg. Can you believe we haven't even debated the credence of Hollow Earth yet? Imagine, this video was supposed to be just like a 12-minute quickie connecting some dots from QAnon to other conspiracies throughout history. This was supposed to be the filler arc. And now, here we are, over half an hour later, sitting in front of this fucking White Stripes album cover like, no, but wait, there's more! So, I guess, if you want Conspiracy Part 2, click the like button and subscribe. Send this video into outer space. This isn't some obscure niche historical event I'm digging up like, wow, look at what I found. This is real influential shit we will not be rid of for a long time. It's growing and evolving daily, and we have proud QAnon cardholders elected to office and at one point even in executive cabinet positions. Both the politicians and their ideas are not going anywhere anytime soon. These paranoid tensions will probably continue to rise as partisan divides deepen, wealth inequality grows, mass climate displacement arrives, and economies begin to collapse. Everything will continue to spiral and get crazier, and I think ultimately it's going to be up to not only us, but the normies to start reversing course, because the right wing is burying their heads deeper in the sulfur every day, and I'm not sure what can be done about that. So, bear in mind, you can't always trust what you see on the front page of Google. Keep an open mind and approach anything even remotely seedy with as thoughtful and critical of a lens as possible. And stay safe out there. Oh my God. After years of finding every modicum of evidence, every possible piece of information, I finally have my answer. Among Us did 9/11.